Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Before we start a discussion on Srimadbhagawatam, today one question came up. If somehow there is a death happens in our family, then what do we do? Should we stop the deity worship at home for a certain number of days? Or what to do with the deities? See, there is a word called sutak. So sutak is, the exact meaning is actually that our consciousness gets affected by death or even at the time of birth in the family. So consciousness has to be proper to serve the deities. Now in Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says somewhere that the Sutak period for Shudras, it is longer because their consciousness, their mind is not that much in control. So for them it is 40 days. For Vaishyas, it's 20 some days. Less for Kshatriya and less for Brahmins. I think for Brahmins it's 3 or 5 days, something like that. But he didn't mention about Vaishnavas. So now according to that custom, whatever our tradition is, family tradition, they say there is a Sutak period. So cannot worship the deities in that time. And they say even to keep your mala aside, don't do any bhakti, any puja part, any karma kand. But bhakti doesn't come in karma kand. So from that point of view, if one is worshipping the deities, even during Sutak period, it's okay. One has to see practically. But at the same time, if the family tradition is there and family pressure is so much that you cannot worship the deities, because there is no point in having a fight in the house about all this. There's no point. So one option is for a few days, let the deities be kept at somebody else's house who can take care, who can serve the deities. But if we think there cannot be any fight in the house and nobody will even come to know about it because we have to eat, so deities can also eat, yes, go for it. It's okay. It's just one should be at peace when serving the deities. That's all. That's the main criteria. But if we cannot be at peace, if there can be a problem in the house, then better let the deities go to somebody else's house. Or even if that is not possible, just put the deities to rest for a while. It's okay. Mental offering can be done. First thing is no fighting in the house, especially for this thing. That's very important. Deities don't like anybody to fight. And what kind of service should you do if there's fighting? So yes, a Sutak period is a valid injunction because our consciousness gets disturbed when there's a death or birth in the family. So family tradition we can follow, we should follow, but at the same time deities have to be served. So whatever arrangement can be made for the deities, just do it. Whatever is practical. So now we'll continue with the discussion on Srimadbhagawatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form, text number 8 onwards. Esha hi shesha sattvanam atmansha paramatmana adi avataru yatraso bhutagramo vivabhyate. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the Super Soul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. So, gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation in this material world, not outside, in this material world. One can say, well, Garbhodaksha Vishnu is. Well, after the creation started, because Garbhodaksha Vishnu and then Kshirodaksha Vishnu, after that the creation, the activity starts. When the Kshirodaksha Vishnu enters as Paramatma in each and every atom. So after that, he is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the super soul. Is not the plenary portion. Plenary means at the same plane, at the same level. It's a different form, but at the same level. Why plenary portion of the super soul? Because super soul also does not exist in the spiritual world. So similarly, the universal form exists only in the material world. The difference is super soul is spiritual, universal form is material. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. The Supreme Lord expands himself in two ways, by personal plenary expansions and separated minute expansions. So first is called Swa Ansha, second is called Vibhin Ansha. Separated, Vibhin Ansha, minute expansions, and plenary Swa Ansha means it's its own self. The personal plenary expansions are Vishnu Tattvas, and the separated expansions are living entities. Since the living entities are very small, they are sometimes described as the marginal potency of the Lord. But the mystic yogis consider the living entities and the supersoul Paramatma to be one and the same. It's however a minor point of controversy. After all, everything created rests on the gigantic Virat or a universal form of the Lord. So mystic yogis, they sometimes consider living entities, Jiva and Atma and Paramatma to be same. They are same in this respect. They are spiritual, both are spiritual, but the size-wise and the function-wise, they're different. But after all, everything created rests on the gigantic Virat or universal form of the Lord for their activity. Text 9. Sa adhyatma sadidevascha sadibhuta iti trita virata prano dashvid ekada hridayamicha. So again this dashvid trivita ekada, again these words came. The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10 and 1 in the sense that he is the body and the mind and the senses. He is a dynamic force for all movements of 10 kinds of life energy, and he is the one heart where life energy is generated. So this is about the gigantic universal form or the Virat Rupa of the Lord. So how 3, 10 and 1? 3 means his body, mind and the senses in that sense. 10 life years, and Ekada 1, he is a one heart where life is generated. Life energy is generated. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the 8 elements, earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego, are all products of the Lord's inferior energy. Whereas the living entities who are seen to utilize the inferior energy originally belong to the superior energy, the internal potency of the Lord. The 8 inferior energies work grossly and subtly, whereas the superior energy works as the central generating force. This is experienced in the human body. The gross elements, namely earth, etc., form the external gross body and are like a coat, whereas the subtle mind and false ego act like the inner clothing of the body. So gross elements are like outside and subtle elements are inside. Gross elements are what we see, subtle elements what we feel. We can conceive of them. The movement of the body are first generated from the heart, and all the activities of the body are made possible by the senses, powered by 10 kinds of air within the body. So body is made of 8 elements, properly explaining, but they all come down to the senses. So subtle elements of mind, intelligence, and the senses. And it all is controlled by the heart, or in the heart the soul is there. And 10 kinds of air on which the soul floats. The 10 kinds of air are described as follows. The main air passing through the nose in breathing is called prana. The air which passes through the rectum as evacuated bodily air is called apan. The air which adjusts the foodstuff within the stomach and which sometimes sound as belching is called saman. The air which passes through the throat and the stoppage of which constitutes suffocation is called the udan. And the total air which circulates throughout the entire body is called vayan air. Subtler than these 5 airs, there are others also. That which facilitates the opening of the eyes, mouth, etc. is called nag air. Air which increases appetite is called krikar air. The air which helps contraction is called kurma air. Air which helps relaxation by opening the mouth wide in yawning is called devadatta air. And the air which helps sustenance is called dhananjaya air. So much detail is given about even the air in the body. There are 10 kinds of air. I'm pretty sure in the Western medicine, they just call that air, that's it. But different kinds of air. So these different kinds of air, the mind, intelligence, and the senses, and the heart in which the soul is, so these all constitute the body, universal body. All these airs are generated from the center of the heart, which is one only. So generated from the center of the heart, which is one, because soul is there, and besides that, super soul is there. Without the super soul being present, soul cannot do anything on its own. So the super soul is there, and that guides and that gives power to all these airs, to the movement of all these airs. And just like when we die, as soon as the soul and the super soul leave the body, no matter what kind of airs are there, they all stop. There's no more movement of air. And that's it. We're dead. The body is dead. This central energy is superior energy of the Lord, who is seated within the heart, within the soul of the body, who acts under the guidance of the Lord. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. So heart is the central point of the body. That is the center of all the energy, of all the activities. It's not the mind. It's not the brain. It's the heart. Now, sometimes it is also mentioned, the heart that is mentioned here, is that the physical heart that we see in surgeries or in the anatomy of the body? That is little controversial. I've heard both kinds of arguments on that. So sometimes it is said that is not the heart where the soul resides. It's like it's in between the chest, the center point of the chest. That's where this heart, where the soul resides, is. The organ heart is on the left side, but the soul heart is in the middle. That it could be true, but I have read both kinds of arguments on that. So all these airs are generated from the center of the heart, which is one only. This central energy is superior energy of the Lord, who is seated within the heart, with the soul of the body, who acts under the guidance of the Lord. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. The complete central force is generated from the heart by the Lord, who is seated there and who helps the conditioned soul in remembering and forgetting. The conditioned state is due to the soul's forgetfulness of his relationship of subordination to the Lord. One who wants to continue to forget the Lord is helped by the Lord to forget him birth after birth. But one who remembers him by dint of association with the devotee of the Lord is helped to remember him more and more. Thus the conditioned soul can ultimately go back to Godhead. So the conditioned soul, it depends upon the soul's desire, what he wants. If he wants to remember the Lord is there to help him. If he wants to forget, Lord is there to help him. But if the desire is there to remember the Lord, then the Lord makes the arrangement for him to come in association with devotees who help him remembering the Lord. So that's why the association of devotees is very, very, very much required. The process of transcendental help by the Lord is described in Bhagavad Gita as follows. Tesham satatyuktanam bhajtam pritipurvakam adami buddhi yogam tam yena mamo payantite. The buddhi yoga process of self-realization with intelligence transcendental to the mind, devotion service, can alone elevate one from the conditioned state of material entanglement in the cosmic construction. The conditioned state of the living entity is like that of a person who is within the depths of huge mechanical arrangement. The mental speculators can reach the point of buddhi yoga after many, many lifetimes of speculation. But the intelligent person who begins from the platform of intelligence above the mind makes rapid progress in self-realization. So it depends upon one how he wants to make progress. Mental speculators, those who are jnanis, they lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of speculation, that slowly, ultimately they have to come to take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna to make any progress. So those who are in the process of bhakti yoga, they have already taken shelter. And Krishna gives them the buddhi yoga. Krishna gives them the intelligence by which they come to him. Because the buddhi yoga process entails no fear of deterioration or retrogression at any time, it is guaranteed path to self-realization, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Mental speculators cannot understand that the two birds, as mentioned in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, sitting in one tree are the soul and the super soul. The individual soul eats the fruit of the tree, means he is eating the fruits of his own karma, whether enjoying them or suffering. While the other bird does not eat the fruit, but only observes the activities of the eating bird. Without this difference between the soul and the super soul, or God and the living entity, certainly still in the entanglement, one who cannot understand, Without attachment, the witnessing bird helps the fruit-eating bird perform fruitful activities. So super soul helps the jivatma in performing fruitful activities. This is what the jivatma wants to do. One who cannot understand this difference between the soul and the super soul, or God and the living entities, is certainly still in the entanglement of the cosmic machinery, and thus must still await the time when he will be free from bondage. So first step on the path of self-realization is how we are. First step is I'm not this body, I'm a spirit soul. Second is I'm different from God. I'm soul, he's we can say Paramatma or he's Bhagwan, whichever aspect we get to. And then the third is to perform devotion service. I have my eternal relationship with him and I have to perform devotion service to please him. Text 10. Smaran Vishwasrajami Sho Vigyapitam Adhokshaja Virajam Virajam Tapatsvena Tejasasham Vivrittaye. The Supreme Lord is the supersoul of all the demigods entrusted with the task of constructing the cosmic manifestation. Being thus prayed to by the demigods, he thought to himself and thus manifested the gigantic form for their understanding. So this universal form, it was described in Bhagavad Gita, it was described in the beginning of second canto, it's described in third canto, because it's a difficult topic for the neophytes, or for those who are not in the process of bhakti. They cannot understand this universal form at all. So for demigod's understanding, he manifested this gigantic form. So means gigantic form or universal form comes from Krishna. Krishna does not come from the universal form. So we can understand who's superior. The impersonalists are captivated by the gigantic universal form of the Supreme. They think that the control behind this gigantic manifestation is imagination. Intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. For example, the individual human body does not develop from the womb of the mother independently, but because the living entity, the soul, is within the body. Without the living entity, a material body cannot automatically take shape or develop. Even the body of a little ant or a mosquito cannot take shape without the presence of living entity or soul inside that body. When any material object displays development, it must be understood that there is a spiritual soul within the manifestation. The gigantic universe has developed gradually, just as the body of a child develops. The conception that the transcendence enters within the universe is therefore logical. As a materialist cannot find the soul and the supersoul within the heart, similarly, for want of sufficient knowledge, they cannot see that the Supreme Soul is a cause of the universe. The Lord is therefore described in the Vedic language as Avana Manasa Gochara, beyond the conceptions of words and minds. So scientists can try, they created few years back this super collider in Europe, and they were thinking by colliding the two atoms at unreasonably high speed, and the energy will emit from that, and by studying that energy and by studying the colliding of the atoms, we can understand how the creation came into being. It's not possible. Creation came into being because the Lord wanted it, because the jivas desired it, because they had to have their bodies, they had to have their field of activity where they can perform their activities and try to fulfill their desire. And for that purpose, the material creation was created. That cannot be understood by colliding two atoms together. It can only be understood by reading Bhagavatam or other scriptures where in more detail these topics are given. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, the mental speculators try to bring the Supreme within the purview of words and minds, but the Lord refuses to be so intelligible. The speculator has no adequate words or mind to gauge the infinity of the Lord. The Lord is called Adhokshaja, or the person who is beyond perception, by the blunt, limited potency of her senses. One cannot perceive the transcendental name or form of the Lord by mental speculation. The mundane PhDs are completely unable to speculate on the Supreme with their limited senses. Such attempts by the puffed up PhDs are compared to the philosophy of the frog in the well. A frog in a well was informed of the gigantic Pacific Ocean, and he began to puff himself up in order to understand or measure the length and breadth of the Pacific Ocean. Ultimately, the frog burst and died. The title PhD can also be interpreted as plow department. I never read that before. Maybe I don't remember reading that. A title meant for the tillers in the paddy field. The attempt of the tillers in the paddy field to understand the cosmic manifestation and the cause behind such wonderful work can be compared to the endeavor of the frog in the well to calculate the measurements of the Pacific Ocean. The Lord can reveal himself only to a person who is submissive and who engages in his transcendental loving service. The demigods controlling the elements and ingredients of universal affairs prayed to the Lord for guidance, and thus he manifested his gigantic form, as he did at the request of Arjuna. So Prabhupada is heavy on all these mental speculators. Mental speculators, jnanis, modern day scientists actually. They speculate and speculate. Look at this Chandrayaan mission. It's nothing but speculation actually. Of course, as Indians, we are proud, oh, we have done so much of technological advancement. But frankly speaking, if we use Prabhupada's words, this is foolish attempts actually. Foolish. In India, when the whole knowledge is there, Vedic knowledge there to find out where the moon is, okay, you want to send the rocket to moon, that's a different story, but first find out where the moon is. And moon is not 380,000 kilometers from Earth. It's millions of miles away from Earth, 90 million miles. We'll study in fifth Canto, how far the moon is. So first of all, the planet that all these scientists, all this money that we waste and figure out what the planet, where we have to go, it is actually the Rahu planet. Because Prabhupada also explained in 1965 or 68 or so, whenever Americans went to the moon, or they claimed they went to the moon. Prabhupada said they didn't go to the moon. It's not possible for them to go 90 million miles. They just went to Rahu planet, just nearby. And secondly, they didn't find any vegetation or any population on this planet. And Prabhupada said, moon planet is the rays of the moon planet gives the taste to the vegetables and fruits on earth. So if the rays of moon can give so much taste to vegetables and fruits on earth, how come that place itself is without any kind of vegetation? It's not at all possible. So Chandrayaan mission, they went to Rahu planet. So now that Vikram was supposed to stay on that land and give us the pictures and analyze the data and this and that. Well, even on Rahu planet, there are people living. They don't have the same body. The ingredients are same. Whatever Krishna mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Now there's different permutation and combination of all these elements, depending upon the atmosphere of that planet where they're living. And we are trying to find out methane gas or amino acids or water to make sure to ascertain that there is life on that planet. But life on that other planet could be based on something else other than amino acids or methane or water. It could be some other chemical or some other element. So we are trying to understand the life on, let's even use scientific terms, moon, from our perspective. That's what Prabhupada says. This is frog mentality. There was a frog in the well, and then there was a frog who came from Pacific Ocean in that well. So the Pacific Ocean frog was telling this frog in the well how big the Pacific Ocean is. And the frog in the well, he said, okay, is it 2 times as bigger than the well? because he had no idea of what the Pacific Ocean is. He only had the idea of the well. And the Pacific Ocean frog said, no, 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 it's much bigger. No, no, it's 4 times bigger. No, 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 it's much bigger. And then this well frog, he just puffed up his chest and he said, oh, it's that big, that big. He's trying to measure with his hands, and then he put in so much of air in his body that he busted and died. So we are trying to, that frog was trying to understand the size of Pacific Ocean by comparing it to the size of the well. Similarly, our mundane scientists, what are they doing? Spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on research and studies and experimentation and hours and hours and hours of their useful lifetime. Intelligent people, obviously they're very intelligent, but wrongly placed intelligence. So they're spending all this money, all this time, all the effort to study the Pacific Ocean based on the size of the well. It doesn't make sense. In the process, they might develop some technology which can help humanity or which can help India or whatever way. That's a different story. But they miss the whole point. So better they study Bhagavatam and other Vedic scriptures, and then they can easily find out where the moon is. And going to the moon, what's a big deal? You cannot study that moon. Just like even if they went to Rahu planet and the Vikram was unsuccessful in its mission of landing properly. So since there's a population on Rahu planet, and Rahu planet comes in the upper planet, in the upper planetary system, so there must be some forces there. They didn't give permission to the Vikram for landing properly. So they must have picked the Vikram and just throw it in on one of the sides, and that's it. And we are thinking, oh, we landed, or we didn't land, or we are still getting the images, or at least the orbiter is trying to find out the location of Vikram, or the NASA has found out the location of Vikram. But it's not enough for us to understand Rahu planet. So better we become eligible to go to those planets by purifying our consciousness. And then easily we can go and live there. Why bother about studying and sending the data there? We can go and live there also. What's the big deal? So the whole process is of purifying our consciousness and becoming eligible. And what to speak of Rahu and Moon and Sun planet or Brahmaloka or any other loka, we can become eligible to even go back to the spiritual planet, spiritual world, Golok Vrindavan, to be happily with the Supreme Lord. Even if somebody goes to Rahu or Moon or Sun planet, it is temporary, and there is still a problem of birth, death, old age, and disease. So why bother? Why waste so much of time and money and energy in pursuing some temporary goals, and which doesn't lead to a proper knowledge anyway? It's just very, very limited and very temporary knowledge that we get. So anyway, we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for clarifying all the doubts. Good class.
Thank you.
Prabhupada also explained very nicely about air. So much of details, never heard.
Yeah.
I think Ayurveda works on these details basis. They give their medicines on, pit vat and all those three vat, na?
Kaph, Pitta, and Vayu.
Pit and Vayu. It is quite related to the quite like based on मेरे को लगता है इसी से
This is all part of Ayurveda.
all their
But
medicines are based on air.
yeah, but how much knowledge Prabhupada has? This is
Yes,
amazing.
amazing, really amazing. And beautiful example of that frog.
Yeah. Yeah. Frog of the well.
Frog of the well. Very nice. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mata.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Prabhuji, really, during the class one section where you mentioned about, where the pranavayu, or we call that, that actually the soul resides. It's near the heart or it's in the middle of the heart. It's so mysterious, and sometimes these informations, really, it's kind of those stories where you are really, get attracted and you just want to learn and learn the next page of it. What exactly? I was just illusioned into this, that it's really a good thing, like, okay, we are talking about a physical heart, then we are talking about a soul heart, and actually where it resides. So that temptation actually increases to know about these things.
Yeah, yeah. This is what we have to find out.
Absolutely. And sometimes, Prabhuji, we realize, I mean, just see the solar system, like you talked about the planets, just one magical form of Almighty, the solar system itself. There's
Mhm.
no power in this earth or in this universe who can create that magnetic, that the entire solar system, the 8 or 9 planets are revolving around the sun. How it's like a mala, like it's just traversing or moving in the orbits. I mean, how people do not understand this, that it's all, there is someone sitting and who is taking care of all
Moving,
this, who's
moving in the same orbit at the
same
same
orbit.
speed, at the same
Yes,
speed for billions of years.
absolutely.
And scientists say nobody is moving it. How is it possible?
How is it possible? So, so I believe, Prabhuji, we have to, the only way is to surrender and be under
Yep.
His mercy. That's the only
Yeah.
choice you have.
Yeah, that is true.
Thank
And
you
at the
so much,
same time,
Prabhuji.
we develop appreciation for Krishna's arrangement and his position, who Krishna
Yes,
is. All these things are taken care of by his expansions. He
absolutely.
himself hasn't appeared yet.
Absolutely, Prabhuji. Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Chalo.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
We'll stop here. You all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shila Prabhupada.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.